The spiritual world is as real as the physical world in which we live. Around us, there is a multitude of invisible beings, both God's angels and fallen angels, and their presence affects our lives more intensely than we can imagine. Who hasn't experienced a moment of divine protection, a deliverance that could only be explained by the intervention of the Lord's angels? These celestial messengers constantly act to protect and guide us. On the other hand, the fallen angels or demons have the mission of tormenting people, leading them to vice, sin, and eventually to destruction. Even though the spiritual reality is a mystery, many desire to better understand this invisible world. They yearn to see beyond what human eyes can perceive, to experience the depth of the supernatural. And it is precisely for this reason that, in this video, we will explore what happens in the spiritual world around us and how it can directly influence our lives. I will share with you a step-by-step guide to preparing to see the invisible and also share a personal testimony of an experience that radically changed my life. I'm sure you will find great value in what I will share. Before we proceed, I ask you to subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new content I post. I always have something new to help you on your walk with God. Let's discover together how the spiritual world interacts with us in ways we can't even imagine. The spiritual world is a parallel dimension to our physical world and is constantly in motion. It is inhabited by beings like angels and demons who influence our choices, our paths, and even our thoughts. While you watch this video, a spiritual battle may be happening around you, contending for your attention and your spirit. In Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, the Apostle Paul reminds us that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the powers and authorities of the heavenly realms. This warning draws our attention to the importance of studying and understanding this spiritual reality. If we don't do this, we run the risk of being influenced or even destroyed by the evil forces that exist in this invisible plane. Therefore, the first step is to recognize that the spiritual world is real. This awareness helps us to better understand our purpose here on earth and to make more informed decisions. The Bible teaches us that our earthly life is only a fraction of our eternal existence. Thus, our physical experience is deeply interconnected with the spiritual one. God, in His wisdom, allowed some men of the Bible to see the supernatural in detail. He did this so that His people could understand the great transformations that were about to come. A notable example is chapter 7 of the book of Daniel, where the prophet describes a powerful vision of the spiritual world. He saw 4 beasts, each representing empires that would mark the history of humanity. The first beast, a lion with eagle's wings, symbolized the Babylonian Empire, known for its speed and expanding territories. The lion's wings being torn off represented a slowdown in the empire's expansion, while the transformation of the lion into a human being symbolized a change in leadership to a more just one, reflecting Nebuchadnezzar's conversion after experiencing God's power. The second beast, a bear, represented the Medo-Persian Empire, with one side of the bear raised higher than the other, indicating that the Persians were more dominant than the Medes. The 3 ribs in the bear's mouth symbolized the 3 main conquests of this empire. The third beast, a leopard with 4 wings and 4 heads, symbolized the Greek Empire, led by Alexander the Great. The 4 wings and heads represented the speed of Alexander's conquests and the subsequent division of the empire among his 4 generals after his death. Finally, Daniel saw a 4th, terrible and indescribable beast, which represented the Roman Empire. With iron teeth and 10 horns, this creature symbolized the brutality and crushing strength of Rome. A small horn that emerged and spoke arrogantly is interpreted by many as a reference to the Antichrist, a future power that is yet to come. These visions of Daniel show how powerful empires rose and fell, and how these changes affected God's people over time. These accounts are rich in symbols and meanings, and although they are difficult to understand, they serve as a didactic way for God to reveal future events. Besides Daniel, other prophets like Ezekiel also had impressive visions. Ezekiel saw the throne of God, surrounded by creatures with 4 faces and wings, accompanied by wheels full of eyes, representing God's omnipresence and omniscience. Above these creatures, a bright platform supported the throne of God, where a radiant figure resembled a man surrounded by a rainbow, symbolizing divine glory and power. These visions were not only for the prophet's benefit, but had a clear purpose: to prepare and instruct God's people about future events and the magnitude of his glory and power. The Apostle John, however, had the most complete vision of all: the end times. In his vision, recorded in the book of Revelation, he describes the second coming of Jesus, the final judgment, and the establishment of the New Jerusalem. This book is a message of hope and promise for all Christians, assuring that despite tribulations, God's restoration and justice will prevail. It's important to remember that spiritual visions are not confined to the past. Even today, many people have profound experiences with the spiritual world and share impactful testimonies. This is the story of a pastor who was seeking to understand his path. I remember a difficult time in my life when I was seeking to understand what my divine calling was. During that time, a prophetess approached me and said that God had a word for me. Through her, God revealed that I would become a pastor and preach to multitudes, not only in Brazil but also in other countries. At that moment, I saw an angel approach and place a crown on my head. God told me that each precious stone in the crown represented a soul I would win for the kingdom. That experience was transformative, and if I had not been in prayer at that moment, I might not have withstood the intensity of the divine glory I witnessed. The gift of tongues helped me stay firm and bear the weight of that vision. At the same time, I know of reports of people who have had disturbing visions, such as seeing monkeys on others' shoulders, symbolizing a form of spiritual oppression. God allows these visions so that we can pray and intercede for those who are under such evil influence. It's not uncommon to hear testimonies of people who have seen snakes, spiders, or even ferocious dogs in their visions. These symbols represent the presence of the enemy, and we must always remain vigilant. It is essential to understand that the enemy tries to deceive and frighten us, but God is a God of peace and does not fill us with fear or panic. For this reason, we must protect ourselves with the armor of God and keep our faith firm. It is important to remember that those who have visions of the spiritual world often have a past involved with occultism, spiritism, black magic, or even Satanism. After converting and beginning to walk with Christ, those spiritual doors that had been opened in the past can be used by God to bring light and blessing to others. However, it is crucial to understand that spiritual visions are not a daily occurrence. We must be cautious of those who claim to see angels or receive revelations constantly, as this is not the divine pattern. When we read the Bible, we notice that spiritual visions occurred at very specific moments, often after long periods. In the book of Acts, for example, we see an angel appearing to Peter, but between one vision and another, days, weeks, or even months usually passed. God does not reveal himself constantly because he wants us to learn to walk by faith, not by sight. If we saw the spiritual world all the time, we might become disturbed, harming our relationships and our walk with God. These visions, when they occur, have a specific purpose and occur in God's time. An example of this is when Jesus was in Gethsemane, sweating blood and going through deep anguish. The Bible reports that an angel appeared to strengthen him. Similarly, after overcoming temptation in the desert, Jesus was ministered to by angels. This shows us that God is always with us, even if we do not see him. As Christians, we must walk by faith, trusting in the Lord and not in man, seeking true revelation in his word and prayer. If you liked this message, share it with friends and family and subscribe to my channel. May God bless you powerfully, and see you in the next video.